A prominent Republican congressman erupted on live TV mid-interview on Fox News during a discussion about Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill. In real time, this congressman learned about a provision in the Senate version of the bill as it was being voted on that he opposed strongly in the House version of the bill. And because the Senate version, which passed, has to go back to the House for reconciliation, this could potentially jeopardize Trump's entire domestic agenda. But we'll see. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, we have several clips to look at here, but I want to start with this one. This is Congressman Chip Roy of Texas being interviewed on Fox News by MAGA Fox News host Harris Faulkner as the Senate version of the One Big Beautiful Bill is literally being voted on.
Yeah, Harris. I mean, first of all, the president is absolutely right to want to see a bill get through that will extend the tax cuts. That is completely something that Republicans should deliver on. And we should also deliver on the border funding that you and I were talking about right before we broke to that press conference. We need to do that. We need to help Tom Oman. These are all good friends who are doing a great job. The question here is whether the Senate is going to deliver on the spending restraint that is necessary to deal with the inflation tax that is crippling the average American. We talk about the tax increases that would occur if we don't deliver. That is correct. We must deliver. But if we don't deliver on spending restraint, bond markets are going to crater, inflation will continue, interest rates will go up, houses will be less affordable. And let's talk about the stuff that I'm being told in real time that has been added to cut a deal at the last minute. For example, to water down the termination of the Green New scam significantly. I don't have the final text yet, but I was looking at an amendment right before you cut to me. And I believe that they are massively watering down what we did to deliver for the president on the Green New scam. This is the Senate doing swamp things. This is the Senate listening to K Street. This is the Senate wanting to try to save some for their home states, like Senator Murkowski for Alaska, trying to get giveaways to perpetuate the Medicaid money laundering scam in Alaska. I think this is a travesty that the Senate is going to risk the ability of us to deliver for the American people. But we will deliver. It may not be today. It may not be this week. But we're going to deliver on the tax cuts, spending cuts, and the border funding necessary to save this country.
So you can see in real time as he's learning about this, Chip Roy, who is well known for his loud mouth and boisterous behavior. And I'll give you a clip to remind you on this very topic. You can see it in his face. He's getting red. His voice is quivering. He is pissed. He's visibly furious as he's learning about this in real time. Well, for context, that provision is indeed I take issue with his characterization of it, but carve-outs and exemptions for what he calls the Green New scam are indeed in the Senate version. There are certain subsidies, certain protections for renewable energy that are protected in the Senate version, and they were necessary in order to pass the Senate. So he's correct. And it passed the Senate, which means it now has to go back to the House, okay, in order to be reconciled. That's the point of reconciliation. Now, I want to remind you, this is the same man, Chip Roy. After Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill passed the House and went to the Senate, as the Senate was considering this weeks ago, this is what that man, Chip Roy, had to say. And this is what he threatened to do if the United States Senate did not do what he wanted.
And this is why I'm on the floor today, because I need the United States Senate to hear this as clearly as I can say it. We got restrictions on the Green New scam to ensure that about 55 or 60% of those subsidies that are going to enrich billion-dollar corporations to put money in the pockets of the Chinese, to undermine our grid with unreliable energy and undermine natural gas and undermine nuclear, all while bolstering wind and solar, which is littering our fields and littering our landscape, all to provide unreliable energy. We fought like hell to get restrictions on that, to get 60% of the Green New scam basically terminated. The president campaigned on terminating all of it. But this weak-ass Congress and Senate are going to not do that because, we can't disrupt the existing flow of the $400 billion of subsidies going into the pockets of all those big companies raking in the money so they can get free money while you guys all subsidize they're getting rich and your grid gets weaker. This Congress is going to do that. And we fought like cats and dogs to get that 60%. And everybody in town, the K Street lobby, are freaking out. Oh no, we're not going to be able to have our subsidies to build more wind farms and solar farms. We're not going to have more giveaways because their energy won't compete. So that is the one reason I voted for this bill. So my message to the Senate, this will get clipped. It will get sent to the Senate. I'm looking at you, Tom Tillis. I'm looking at you over there in the Senate. You backslide 1 inch on those IRA subsidies, and I'm voting against this bill. I want the White House to hear it. I want the Senate to hear it, because it is the only reason I voted for this bill.
That was what he said a few weeks ago. That's why he was getting pissed in that Fox News interview. Again, I reject his characterization. I think renewable energy subsidies are a great idea, but Chip Roy's insane and opposes it. But he says that's his red line. It's non-negotiable. So after that Fox News interview, when the Senate version passed, this is what Chip Roy had to say on Twitter. This is a deal killer of an already bad deal. And he cites an excerpt regarding protections and carve-outs for renewable energy subsidies. Okay? Given that the House version of this bill passed by 1 vote, if principled conservatives who say that they have a red line and this version crosses the red line, if they actually stick to their guns, this thing is dead. But Chip Roy is a pussy. And Chip Roy, pardon my French, has backed down and caved time and time and time again. So as I respond, LMAO, sure, this is you in the next 48 hours. I fold. I also responded, you'll fold, per usual. Trump has your number. Because Chip Roy talks a big game, but he is no Thomas Massey. He is no Thomas Massey. Could this be the time he finally changes his tune and actually stands on principle and has a bite that's commensurate with his bark? Potentially. But that's not been the Chip Roy of recent memory, not since Trump got back into power. He's folded. Okay? Now, we'll return to Chip Roy in a bit. But first, I want to talk about why this passed the Senate. Remember, there's a 53-47 split in the Senate. Republicans have a 53-seat majority. If a bill becomes a 50-50 split, the Constitution says the vice president can break the tie. That's what happened here. It was a 50-50 vote. Tom Tillis from North Carolina, Republican, voted against this. Rand Paul, Republican senator from Kentucky, voted against this. Susan, I'm concerned, Collins, Republican senator from Maine, was apparently concerned enough to vote against this, which was surprising. The one who folded, the one who gave at least a shot of victory here for the Republicans, who got this through the Senate, wasn't J.D. Vance, not really. It was Lisa Murkowski, the self-professed moderate Republican senator. This woman who we discussed in recent videos, she's been on a book tour. She's recently written a memoir. She's been interviewed left, right, and center. Very intelligent woman. She admitted recently she didn't vote for Trump. She said all kinds of things. She says that she's scared, that the Republicans are scared, that they're getting death threats, that there's an atmosphere of fear in the Republican Party. She even recently indicated that she might caucus with Democrats in the future. She folded. She folded. And I want to play this clip because it's stunning. She was confronted by a reporter with a quote from Republican Senator Rand Paul, a colleague of hers in the same party, basically calling her out for voting for this bill. And I want you to note her reaction, because it's a betrayal of her own hypocrisy, her own insecurity. She knows she fucked up, and she's defensive and desperate to defend it. This clip is stunning.
Out there. Senator Paul said that that your vote was a bailout for Alaska at the expense of the rest of the country.
Oh my God.
That's what Senator Paul said.
The question was easy. Senator, we've got the.
I didn't say it, ma'am. I'm just asking for your response.
My response is I have an obligation to the people of the state of Alaska. And I live up to that every single day. I fight for my state's interests, and I make sure that Alaskans are understood. I work hard to take care of a state that has more unique situations, more unique people, and it's just different. And so when people suggest that federal dollars go to one of our 50 states in a, quote, bailout, I find that offensive. I advocated for my state's interests. I will continue to do that, and I will make no excuses for doing that. Do I like this bill? No, because I tried to take care of Alaska's interests. But I know that in many parts of the country, there are Americans that are not going to be advantaged by this bill. I don't like that. I don't like the fact that we moved through an artificial deadline, an artificial timeline to produce something to meet a deadline rather than to actually try to produce the best bill for the country. But when I saw the direction that this is going, you can either say, I don't like it, not try to help my state, or you can roll up your sleeves.
Out there.
The direction that this was going, it's only going in that direction because of you. You were the deciding vote. If you had not voted for this bill would be dead. There would have been no tie for J.D. Vance to break. It's one thing to say, you know what? They had the votes. They had the votes. This was going to be done regardless of whether or not I voted. So knowing that its passage was inevitable, I jumped in and I did my best for my state. That is a much more palatable argument. That is not the situation here. The only reason that bill is heading in that direction, that bill that she says she doesn't like, that she clearly thinks is terrible because of what it's going to do for the 49 other states in this country, she did it. What she could have done is say, I'm not voting for this bill because, yes, while you might grant certain concessions to Alaska, if I kill this bill, I don't have to worry about Alaska because the things that you want to do to the all 50s, like here's basically what she did, was she said, all these Medicaid cuts and health insurance cuts, these attacks on the ACA and other things, you're going to try to do that to all 50 states. I will vote for this if you protect one of the 50, if you only inflict it on the 49. But Lisa, if you're watching, first like and subscribe. But number two, if you didn't vote for the bill wouldn't have passed, which meant Alaska would have been protected, plus the 49 other states. There would have been no Medicaid cuts, no ACA attacks. No, and that is why, if you look on social media, she is getting savaged. And rightly so, because her rationale makes no damn sense. Now, a couple of other things I want to point out. Andy Ogles, MAGA Republican congressman, he says at the moment the Senate bill doesn't work for him. Ralph Norman, another MAGA Republican congressman, says he's no on the Senate version too. But of course, these people will fold, or rather, it's very likely that they will fold. And they were called out by this, by Democratic Congressman Jim McGovern, after the bill passed the Senate and made its way back to the House.
And here's what baffles me. You all know the truth. You all know the truth. You know this bill is cruel. You know that it will hurt millions of Americans. But Trump wants you to fold. And the sad fact is that many of you will fold in a nanosecond. You'll vote for this even though you know it's bad for your own constituents. You're absolutely terrified that the guy in the White House will get mad and try to find someone to run against you in a primary. Like one of our Republican colleagues said this weekend on CNN, and I quote, "Everyone in the House knows the peril they're in if they vote no on this thing. They know that their jobs are at risk," end quote. You're terror-stricken that what happened over the weekend to Senator Tom Tillis will happen to you. Well, Senator Tillis did the right thing, speaking truth to power. You should listen to him when he says that the Senate's version of this bill betrays President Trump's promise not to take Medicaid away from its rightful recipients. He decided to retire because he wanted to put his constituents first. And quite frankly, I think he's tired of dealing with the relentless MAGA threats and BS.
Well said, Congressman McGovern. Well said. The fact of the matter is, this stands a really good chance of still passing. It's not certain right now, but stands a very good chance. because Republican congresspeople will defy their principles on the altar of political expediency and for the sake of Donald Trump. They fear Trump more than their constituents, and the only way that will change is if their constituents vote their asses out in the November 2026 midterms in favor of Democrats and teach them a lesson. We'll see what happens. But in the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.